Hey guys, welcome back to the What About AI podcast. I'm Sean Boyce,
James Perkins.
and the episode that we have picked out for today is all about AI's impact on the healthcare industry. Got some statistics that I'm going to rattle off here, and then we're also going to talk about our own personal stories because we've been using it for this use case ourselves. But first, what I'll mention is that ChatGPT and Claude both have healthcare specific applications that both consumers and businesses are starting to use more and more these days, and that's what these numbers reflect. So, in terms of the stats that I've got, we've got 230 million people asking healthcare questions on ChatGPT weekly, which amounts also to over 40 million daily. Those numbers are wild.
Yeah.
And I know we've used it ourselves as well too. So I'll have you go first and then I'll tell my story as well also.
Yeah. So I think, well, the big call out there is for all these health apps built into the tool now, you can connect all of your major feeds from the hospital or the doctor you work with, almost all the big diagnostic companies like Quest Diagnostics, et cetera. So you can get live feeds of data when you get results sent directly to your health um, folder, I guess, within the application.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. But even before that existed, ChatGPT was probably used mostly for health questions. Like my parents and my in-laws use it all the time, and it's very helpful and it gives very quick responses. Now you can do that in a HIPAA-safe way, so your information is somewhat protected and kind of firewalled from your other information you might be sharing. I think, how did I use it? Well, personally, I've been seeing my physician for many years, always gave great advice. But recently I went in and said, it's time to do like, a blood test. It's been a few years. Let's see your numbers. Numbers came back and immediately recommended I start taking pharmaceuticals. It's like statins and other things for my heart health. And I asked if there's other options. Like, nah, it's mostly hereditary. You kind of got to go this route. There's no other way. So of course I went to my old friend ChatGPT. I actually asked ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini 3, and there was one other I went to as well, just to see if I can get X Grok, just to see if I can get like feedback on exactly what I might be able to do instead of starting those meds. Tons of suggestions, and of course it cautions we're not a doctor. This is just an app. So I went through and I brought him back to my doctor, and he's like, if you're not like on the brink of death, so if you want to try that first, go ahead. But you're probably going to have to go back to the
Traditional
pharmaceuticals.
approach, yeah.
So I tried that for 3 months, and the results were so astounding. His response was like, "This isn't normal. I haven't seen this before. Maybe your previous blood test was wrong, and
Basically, this can't be real.
this can't possibly be true." I don't have like a magical secret for heart health, but I did find a combination that worked for me. And it brought all my numbers down to the range they should be in a 3 month time span. How insane is that?
Incredible, man.
You have to have the money for the supplements. You have to, I mean,
Yep.
there's something there. You can't get prescriptions really for most of the supplements that they have prescriptions for fish oil, maybe, or a few. But in general, your physician will not prescribe supplements. So you're doing it's kind of do it yourself and you're putting the money out of pocket. But that's radical, life-changing stuff
Yeah.
in a 3 month span, just using an AI tool that didn't exist 2 years ago.
Crazy
So
and
that's
original.
my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well said. For, $20 a month or whatever necessarily you
Yeah.
can gain
Well, I
access
have
to these
the
tools
Max
for.
Pro
Yeah.
Super Plan. I'm paying 200 for every single
Yeah.
one of them.
But I think when I initially started using it myself, which is to help me with, I suffer from migraine headaches. I know a number of us out there do as well too. And I've seen countless specialists over however many years at this point. And the end result every time I went down that road again was the same. Here's whatever the pharmaceutical industry has. Just take this if and when it's happening. It wasn't even really preventative stuff. It was always retroactive. So it's like, good luck. Sorry, basically. I'm like, there's got to be a better way,
Yeah.
right? Like the old infomercial style. So I started tracking basically like when I was getting them because the frequency increased. It's ebbed and flowed throughout my life, but I've always had them and they're like debilitating. For those of you out there that get migraine headaches, I'm sorry because they are absolutely punishing. So I started tracking when I was getting them and I started collecting a little bit more data as well too. And I started interacting with the AI tools, ChatGPT first and then Claude. And that's where I really went deep. I went deep with Claude. And I'm like, here's the data I've got so far and like when I've been getting these, can you help me figure out what's going on? And it ran, like you said, a ton of really helpful suggestions. And I'll give a initial plug immediately for how much more pleasant this experience has been for me in working with these tools. Trust me, I've got a lot of respect out there for the healthcare industry and the providers and all that kind of stuff. But I was more often getting kind of like a dismissive approach sometimes, or almost like they thought I was being or acting crazy in certain instances. And I know other people have had that experience, and I'm sorry for that as well too. So I'm hopeful and optimistic that these technologies will help improve some of those problems because, and to the credit of the providers and stuff like that as well too, I know the healthcare system, especially in this country, has been overwhelmed and overburdened in certain instances, and everyone doesn't necessarily get all the time and the treatment that they can. And I think that's one of these areas where these tools can really help. But not to digress from the story, I do want to wrap that up first. So as I'm providing Claude with this, all the details that I have so far in terms of when I was getting them, like I'm like, look for patterns. Like help me try to figure out like why I'm getting these. People that get migraines, they often talk about triggers. Like what is triggering creating this problem for you, which was the migraine. For me, I used to think it was affiliated with when I would do cardiovascular like exercise. I was a big runner once upon a time, and very much not now. Too old for that, but love to get back to that at some point. When I was doing it though, like every other time, I would trigger a migraine, and I'm like, this is my trigger basically. And I started to like take some medication preventatively in some instances just because I didn't want to have it. But anyway, the data when it poured over it, it found a correlation between pressure and when I would get migraines, as in when the pressure, like atmospheric pressure, would drop below a certain threshold, that looked like it was a pattern it found in the data with only a couple of tracked instances of a migraine headache. Long story short, I take the next steps with the tool and I'm like, okay, so what do I do about it? And as opposed to just taking the pharmaceutical drugs retroactively, it said, well, if you take some of these vitamins proactively, that can actually help you be prepared for your body and your immune system essentially adjusting accordingly if and when those things are going to happen in the future because they know they're going to recur. So I started doing that, and I'm undergoing basically like testing with this myself now, and so far, since I started tracking, I've beat my previous record for the amount of time between when I was getting migraines, and I just set basically the longest one. And I took this plan as well too to my primary care provider, and I said, I worked with tech. Here's what it said. And he basically like signed off on the plan. It's like, yeah, same thing. If you want to give that a shot, I haven't really done or tried things like that before, but it seems relatively harmless given everything else I know about your history. So give it a shot. And so far, so good. Um, but yeah, it's been a remarkable experience thus far. And not only have I been able to go as deep as I want, ask every question that I want, explore every possible angle that I want, but so far the treatment seems to be working as well too. So that experience has been very different.
And I think many people are feeling that already. They're getting these experiences themselves. It's important to note that it's not a doctor. So you still like,
Good point.
if my heart numbers were so scary that like I was on the brink of a heart attack, you don't do that yourself.
Yes,
You
agreed.
have to get like secondary, very very important intervention. But for things that are harmless or just beginning, or you can do some proactive measures on your own, you can't do better than this. It's all the world's medical history in a couple prompts. You can get access to it. I will say there's some tools now that are coming out that are specifically for healthcare in the medical field, both for consumer and for business. The biggest one that I've seen recently that I thought was pretty impressive was Lotus. This is not a plug for Lotus, but I've been using it recently. It can do prescriptions, so it connects to actual doctors if necessary. But before it does that, it goes through all the previous studies that have been done on whatever topic you're talking about, and it can also take in all your lab data and medical history and whatever else you provide it. Um, that is being built into and ingested by ChatGPT and Claude. They have their own tools, but these third parties that are building their own solutions are partnering with healthcare networks and
Right.
doctors and are able to give actual medical advice.
Yep.
So if you need to go a step further and you actually might need a prescription drug, or you may need a doctor to look over the numbers that you're given, use something like that. There's many of them out there that connect with actually medical networks, medical providers,
Yep.
to go the step further. It'll give you the feedback from ChatGPT or Claude, but then it'll give you, oh, this warrants a referral out to a doctor, and some of them are free,
Yeah.
which is
Just,
crazy.
which, yeah, that does kind of blow your mind.
Yeah,
That's great advice. Same here. You know, take every precaution you can. And I think,
don't die, please.
yes, that for sure. That's most important. But work with, like, kind of like we did, I would say work with, whatever healthcare team or access you have in terms of ideas you may have about leveraging this technology in a way to help you with anything that you may be suffering from or want to try to improve. And I think you're also, and this is the next topic or maybe the last one I wanted to dive into here, because basically what we wanted to cover for you is where we're seeing, how we're seeing industries shift and evolve based on the tech that's evolving. And it's pretty remarkable here, and we've shared some personal stories, but on the business side, they're starting to roll some of this out as well too. So
Hmm.
what we're seeing is those products that we mentioned from these companies are starting to develop partnerships with different healthcare systems and hospital networks. And I think that's going to look like rolling some of the access to these tools out to the providers as well also. So they may start doing so proactively or reactively as well also as part of providing you with care. And I think one important thing that you mentioned, which I think is basically where you leverage technology like this to provide almost most of the value or a significant portion of the value is that context, right? As in like it can consume faster than anybody as much context as you can feed it, right? So the records, the tests that you've got done, any of the diagnostics, things like it can help you with interpreting that, diagnosing it, and then in my case for the migraines, like looking for patterns, because that's basically what the idea was, like try to find the smoking gun or whatever for what might be the reason why you're experiencing this, and let's see what we might be able to test or evaluate safely to try to test and see whether or not we can make an improvement to your specific situation. And it's way less practical for any individual human, especially an overwhelmed provider or healthcare system, to be able to go that deep in your specific instance or case. So I think this technology coming to this market is not only going to change the way a lot of this stuff works, but probably going to provide even better service for everybody involved as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it's important to note the impact this is having on the medical profession as well, right? For the first time I can remember, I know medical professionals that can't find a job. I know folks in the nursing industry that have told me recently, like I having a hard time finding a job that I want and that's available.
Same here. That's
Um,
very new.
well, yeah, that's not been the case for at least the past 20
So
years.
different. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I once I heard the similar sentiment about nurses being disrupted, I was like, this will touch everyone.
it will. It will. So we're talking to them and advising them on what they can do to make themselves better at their job using these tools. And it's also useful for educational purposes. It's useful for practical care purposes. If you're a nurse and you know enough about what a person might be diagnosed with, but not enough to actually customize care or treatment, bedside, any type of bedside behaviors, you can learn all of that from AI. You basically have a doctor in your pocket. Again, it's not an actual medical professional, but has access to all medical knowledge. You don't have to go back and look through textbooks or do some searches on Google. You can say, hey, I have a patient that has X disease, and I want to know what I should do differently around whatever it might be. And you'll get a response. So if you're a nurse or a healthcare provider in a situation where you're not 100% sure what you should advise, don't be afraid to use it as a tool. It's necessary now.
Yeah, well said. And I think probably a good idea from this episode. Pretty much, guys, we do that almost every episode. We summarize the key points, any of the resources that we share where you can kind of go deeper, use as a guide. And that can apply to everyone from folks like us who don't have a traditional healthcare background, all the way to and through folks that are in the industry now or looking for work or whatever that want to know, like where is technology, how is AI impacting the industry. So we'll provide that for you for free. You just have to sign up for it and join the newsletter as well also, but that'll be accessible to you as well. Anything else you think we should add for this episode before we wrap up?
I think we're going to start going aggressive on having guests on the podcast.
Definitely.
We want to go out and pick people, clients, yes, but also just individuals working in specific jobs that might be a fit to talk about that job and what they're seeing. Because we're talking to them and giving advice, but it's better to hear it firsthand and we can debate some of these topics live. So look for some of those coming soon if you're interested. If you We'll definitely do healthcare, but we're going to do almost every industry. So if you're interested in seeing how this is affecting individual jobs, tune in. We're going to have folks on the podcast.
Yeah, well said. And if you are one of those professionals in the industry and seeing some of that firsthand, reach out to us as well. Also, we'd love to connect with you and have you on the show.
Yes, we would.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks all.